Hello everyone, this is Jimmy and welcome to episode 14 of Project Ozone 3. It's been, I don't know, maybe 12, 14 hours since last episode was recorded, and we can see now that our slate automation has been pretty successful. It's filled up basically all of our drawers. I set these up with a downgrade to bring them down to a single stack, and then potentially upgrade to let them store a few more items. This way, it'll make 4 stacks of blank slates before moving on to making reinforced slates, before moving on to imbued slates, and lastly, demonic slates. There is a tier above demonic, but we don't need it for a long time. I think it's called like ethereal. Let's see, ethereal slates. We don't need them until, let's see, not that. I think Wand of Animation is the first time that we truly need ethereal slates. So, yeah, I'm not bothering with those yet. So all we have to do is just leave this alone. I made a handful more, a lot more imbued inscription tiles. So this will just craft whenever we need, whenever we take slates out of here. So now that, in fact, I'm going to do that a little bit of that right now. I'm going to take 2 stacks of blank slates and stash them away for later. And this will now go ahead and create, after the current one it's working on, it'll start creating blank slates. It makes a blank slate and it'll get taken out and a new one continues. So this just runs. Again, it's powered by all these witches chilling up here. Cool. So now that our blood magic here is done, let's move on to the meat of today, and I'm hoping that will be Botania runes. So I've been looking over the recipes for these Botania runes. I think if you take away the Lordcraft slate and the blood magic slate, these materials, these other ones, are like the vanilla recipe for the runes. So the only difference is that it takes blank slates, which are very easy to make in bulk, and Lordcraft runes. Now, I did run into a small issue looking at these. I don't know if it's possible to fully automate this process. Because if you look, this has to be done in a runestone crafter, which I don't think can be automated. Like, you have to actually click the make button. Likewise, these runes can only be made in the arcane crafter, which once again cannot be fully automated as far as I know. But I guess we'll tackle automation later. For now, let's start by just making some of these slates. Perhaps it's conceivable that the Lordcraft rune isn't used up in the process. I guess we'll find out. So before we're ready to actually make the Botania runes, I think I was looking at the recipe for these Lordcraft runes, and they use a lot of this, what's it called? Lordic stone, right? I think there's like 3 tiers of runes. There's simple, Lordic, and crystal, and each upgrade requires effectively 8 of these Lordic stones or crystalline stones. So I think it's time to automate our Lordic stone transformation. There is the crafting recipe for it. Let's see if I can pull that up. There is this arcane forge crafting recipe, but that takes mana infused shards, and perhaps worsely, it takes mana. Which, we have to right click our crystals into the void interface to get mana, which is a manual process. And, well, you guessed it, I don't like manual processes. So I'm thinking the way we want to automate it is remember, if we have our translocation matrix set up correctly, we can transform stone into Lordic stone. If I can find some stone in here. Here it is. Right, just by putting it through the swapper. Let's see, bind this here. We can get rid of that and put a button here. So when that swaps, bind that. Now when that swaps, this becomes Lordic stone. So I think all we need is a block placer to put regular stone here and a block breaker to pick up this Lordic stone. Sounds easy enough. Alright, here it is. It's just a very basic micro system. We have a timer here that ticks both our block placer and our translocation matrix, and then that causes the block to get swapped over, where it not only transforms, but it gets immediately picked up by this block breaker, stores it in this crate. So any stone we put in here ultimately get turned into Lordic Stone. That'll help us create these runes much cheaper, thankfully. Now, because these Botania runes take crystal tier runes, I think we still have to upgrade some of the Lordic Stone into crystalline stone, unless there's a way I'm missing of making this. What I'm seeing is in the Arcane Forge and the later in the Arcane Construct. I feel like it was 10 episodes ago that we started the road down magic, and just now, finally, we're ready to make our first rune. I believe this is the Rune of Water. And I know that when you craft some of these runes, like when you craft the tier 2 runes, it doesn't consume the two, at least normally, it doesn't consume the 2 tier 1 runes. I'm kind of hoping that the Lordcraft rune is also not consumed. That would really help with our automation difficulties. So we have these various items here. I believe those are all the inputs for the Rune of Water. So the way you use the Runic Altar is you literally throw the items on there, and then the thing gets blasted with mana for a few seconds. And we'll need a Wand of the Forest as well as a piece of living stone. So when it's done getting blasted, you'll see that it looks a little different. And you look at the tooltip, it says it's time to you throw this at it, and then you right-click with the Wand of the Forest. And that gives us our first runes. Unfortunately, it does look like it used up the Lordcraft runes. So it seems like these will be quite difficult to fully automate. Unless there's something I'm overlooking. If any of you out there are more comfortable with Lordcraft than I am, which probably is all of you. I'm pretty not good, not an expert at Lordcraft. But if anyone out there does know a trick to automating the production of these, do let me know. I am very curious. So anyways, we're going to have to make some of all of these runes. That was water, then we have to do fire, earth, etc., etc. But first, this process of manually throwing items on and then throwing a piece of living earth or living rock on and hitting it with the wand is a little tedious. So Botania intentionally gave us some tools to help us out, and namely the Runic Altar. You know what? Let's grab the Lexica Botania. The Runic Altar emits a redstone signal depending on what state it's in. So let's see if I can find. Is there a search function in here somewhere? Okay, well, let me find it. Alright, here we go. So the Runic Altar, first couple pages just talks about how it works. Apparently the recipe doesn't show up. But anyways, what we're looking for is here. Attaching a comparator to it will emit a signal of 1 if the altar is accepting mana, and 2 if the altar is ready to craft the rune. That means it's time to hit it with the wand. So we can use this to tell, when we should wait, and then when it's time to drop the piece of living rock on it and hit it with the wand. So it involves a little bit of vanilla redstone, but let me build it out and explain to you how it'll work. Well, it's messy as all hell, but here it is. So let's walk through it. As we discussed, the Runic Altar emits a comparator signal of 0 when it doesn't have a valid recipe, 1 when it's accepting mana, and 2 when it's waiting for the finisher step. So if the value is 0, this is off. Everything here is off. If the value is 1, which means it's accepting mana, then this piece of redstone is lit, which powers this repeater, but since it decays to 0 here, well, so this will be 1, this will be 0, it will not power this. It will not power this repeater. But, so anyways, let's handle that case. So when that is 1, that causes this repeater to be powered, which causes this to turn off, which this circuit here is what will feed it new items. You know what, let's come back to this half. I think this half is a bit more interesting. When the comparator has a signal of 2, hold on, if the comparator has a signal of 2, this piece of redstone will be power 2, this will be power 1, so actually I have to move this repeater. 1 second. There we go. So when the comparator is emitting a signal of 2, that will turn on this repeater, which will cause this sequencer to activate. Well, it does two things. First, it causes this dropper to activate once. Right, on Rising Edge, the dropper will dispense one item into the open crate, which will drop it onto the runic altar. That item, incidentally, is the living rock. Then what will happen is, let's actually do this. What happens is, the other thing it'll do is it'll activate the sequencer, which when it receives a redstone signal, it'll begin this loop, which goes for long. It'll stay off for 1 second and then turn on for 1 second. So it stays off for 1 second to allow the process to finish, and then it turns on to turn on a vacuum chest, who will hopefully suck up all the finished products and store them away, and then we can pipe this into whatever automation we have later. So that's the completion side. Now for the item handling side, that's a bit more complicated. So when this is emitting a redstone signal of 0, it causes this side to turn on as it is, which causes so how do I describe this? Redstone's a little confusing to talk about. This here is a NOT gate. So when the when the output signal from this comparator is 0, this NOT gate output is on, and that goes into this logic gate. The other input from this logic gate, well, there's a manual override, and there's a comparator hooked up to this storage crate, which is serving as our input. So essentially what this is saying is, when there are items in the input crate, and this is not accepting mana, and the manual shutoff is off, this output will be on. We can look at the case here, or this output will be off. Sorry. So this is a 3-way NAND gate. Right? It's all 3 inputs must be off, and it knots the output. So it's a 3-way NAND gate. Notice it. It NANDs these 2 inputs, and it not ANDs that with this. It's a little hard to describe. It'll make more sense when I show you instead of trying to talk about it. Anyways, that activates this timer, which 3 seconds later will cause a redstone signal to hit this translocation matrix, which will cause this storage crate and that storage crate to swap positions. Ideally, by then, your input items are all in here, which gets swapped to here, put into this servo, or into, the servo sucks it out into this open crate, drops it onto the runic altar. So now that I'm sure I've thoroughly confused just about everyone, including myself, let's see it in action. Alright, so for demonstration, I have all the components for Runes of Fire here. The idea is that eventually we'll have like a AE interface push the items into this storage crate, for like on-demand auto crafting. But for now, we put the items in here, we wait 3 seconds, and we'll see all the items are now slowly being... Oh, may have to wait more than 3 seconds. Hold on. Well, that worked. Okay, so all the items are being dropped here. Once they have dropped here, you'll see that this turns on, which will cause this to turn off. And then once the mana fills up, let's see, one more thing to fix is that this has to be... You figure out what mode this has to be on. Use item on block, apparently. Alright, so that was a debug run. Let's try that one more time. Alright, so the only change I did was I swapped out the item duct here with a transfer node with speed upgrades. I think this will be slightly faster. And this is somewhat sensitive to the speed of this item transport segment, so I want to put the fastest one I have there. So anyways, let's start by putting our input items into the crate again. These 7 items should be the recipe for the Rune of Earth. There we go. So it drops all the items, starts the crafting process. Once it has enough mana, drops a living rock on it, hits it with the staff, and the only thing it didn't do was turn on the vacuum chest. Why did it not do that? Let's see. Active with signal. This is outputting on red. That is inputting on brown. That would do it. So red. There we go. Now it'll activate the vacuum chest when it's done. Anyways, I know this was a little confusing. I hope I made sense to at least some of you. I can go through again and just show you the settings on all of the various machines and blocks if you want to just directly copy the setup. Um, let's see. The goal of all this though is so that we can set it up such that when we have auto crafting available, we can push one set of crafts into this storage crate at a time, and it'll automatically craft them into runestones for us. So again, imagine if we had a applied energistics interface right here on blocking mode, pushing into this crate, then we could use this entire setup to do auto crafting of runes. Anyways, now that we have this infrastructure set up, let's go ahead and craft the rest of the runes. We have air, mana, and then we have some of the tier 2 runes to do. Crafting the air rune. Let's make sure the vacuum hopper works this time, and then we'll have the system fully figured out. Hey, it works. Perfect. So here are all of the tier 1 runes. Now, we could go ahead and make our tier 2 and tier 3 runes. Looking at the recipes, the tier 1 and tier 2 runes that are used in these recipes are not consumed. So these recipes are actually not that bad. You know, they don't use those really awkward, non-stacking, difficult to make Lordcraft runes. Instead, they use like crystals and other much simpler things. But fact of the matter is we don't have a use for them yet. Right now, what I want to do is get to Terra Steel, which unlocks most of late game Botania. So Terra Steel requires, if we look at it, we've already made most of it actually. Sparks I think are very easy to make. So the only challenge in making Terra Steel is the terrestrial agglomeration plate. Now this recipe has a few hard parts to it. We've done the runes, sweet. A focal lens isn't that bad. We have to fire up our exchange tablet again to do it, but we've already seen how to do that. The only challenge left then is a signet of antimony. So a signet of antimony is made by pouring molten antimony over an ember shard, alright? Now it says, how do you get molten antimony? So you can melt antimony ingots into it, but I don't think that gets us anywhere. We have to make it in the alchemical mixer, which is, I think it's like the mixer centrifuge, which we use to make Dawnstone, but we have to add this alchemical for some reason I want to say recombobulator, except I know I'm adding a syllable. Alchemical recombulator to mix lead with sugar. Lead with sugar, eh? Anyways, and we have to add some of these, some ash to it, I guess. So, yeah, this looks like it'll be a nice handful of steps. Let's get started by making the alchemical recombulator, which once again takes our friendly exchange tablet. Alright, first shot at making the alchemical recombulator. Odds are I'm using exactly 16 copper and 32 lead, so I'm about 100% sure that this will be a failure. I mean, you know, you gotta roll for your 1%, right? You gotta start somewhere. Let's see how we did. Yep, and as expected, we got alchemical waste. So 5 and 5. Alright. So with an error of 5 and 5, we know that it is exactly 21 copper, 16 plus 5, and 37 lead, which means this one should work. Oh, whoops. I need to wait until my laser gets charged. Alright, here we go. So I would be shocked if this didn't work. Now, once this is done, I went ahead and found the article on it. Let's see if I can find it again in the documentation. It's in here somewhere. Here we go. Alchemical mixing. So it says we can. That's not the page I want. Alchemical thingy. You blah blah blah. To assemble it, begin by placing the globe on any side of the top block of a mixer centrifuge. Then place any number of pedestals around it, either block of pedestal. Apply metal aspecti to the pedestals as per usual. It works the same as a mixer centrifuge. Fluids, blah blah blah. The ash must then be added to the pedestal. The ash is not consumed. That's good to know. Then right-click the globe to begin crafting. All right, cool. So it looks like the recombulator does not take any ember. It just has to be placed on top of our mixer. So let's see. Did our craft succeed? Sure did. So right now our mixer centrifuge is still finishing up a batch of dawnstone. I'm going to go ahead and let it finish that, and then we'll move on to making this antimony. So according to JEI, to make antimony, we need, I don't know why there's a range, because it says this soot isn't consumed, but 16 dawnstone and 16 silver. Let's put those in, and by my calculation, the rate that it consumes lead to sugar is, it should be 2 ingots of lead to 9 pieces of sugar produce 3 ingots of antimony. At least that's my back of the napkin calculation. So we should be good to... What happened here? Why is the text solid? Anyways, we should be good to melt lead in here, silver or sugar in here, and hopefully that'll combine in our mixer centrifuge. Well, I see lead and sugar flowing in, but I don't see anything flowing out. Let's consult the book again. I wish a book would just leave you at where you last left off. So then right-click the globe to begin crafting. Let me see. Right-click. Yes, no, maybe? Right-click. I'm still doing something wrong. Alright, let me see if I can figure out what it is. Alright, I think my pedestals were 1 block too low. The documentation said that either block of the pedestal, so they're 2 blocks tall, has to be on the level of the globe. So let's see if this does it. No. Let's see, the globe is here. So yeah, the top block of the pedestal is now on the level of the globe. Again, Ember, couldn't you give me, some sign that it's working? Or if it's not working, what's wrong? Alright, fluids must be piped into the bottom block and extracted from the top, yep. Then ash must be added to the pedestals. The ash is not consumed when crafting, yep. Then right-click the globe to begin crafting when the machine... Alright, begin by placing the globe on any side of the top block of a mixer centrifuge. Maybe the top face is not a valid choice? Let's try putting it somewhere else. It's going to be difficult as all the other blocks are in use. I'll put this pipe back later. There we go. I think that did something. Tough to tell because I don't have the... Okay, so let's try replacing this with the pipe again and setting the pipe to extract. Did that pull anything out? Nope. Alright, I'm at a loss. Give me a second. Alright, here's what I figured out so far. So I went ahead and put an ember dial on our mixer centrifuge. We can see that when we activate the thingamajigger, it does indeed drain the ember from our mixer centrifuge pretty quickly. So I think it's trying to work. But what happens is, oh, there it goes. Okay, so I guess maybe I just didn't have enough ember in it before. I'd always seen in other videos that when it doesn't work, it spits out this alchemical waste, but I was never able to get it until now. So I think it takes like I don't remember how much ember I started with, somewhere around 4,000. So I think with 4,000 ember in there, we were able to come to the conclusion that there's 7 dawnstone inaccuracy. So let's get 7 more ash. And we can put this into the dawnstone one. Oh, it consumed the ash. Okay, so let's get let's see. I think it's 23 dawnstone and 16 silver. And once it charges back up to 4,000, I'll start it again. Alright, our mixer centrifuge is charged up again, so please work. I beg you. I think this really describes one of my frustrations with this mod. That it's so unclear when things aren't working, but oh my gosh, it's working. It's working. It's working. We did it. Alright, but as I was saying, that kind of draws my frustration to this mod. When it's not working, there's no clue at all that the problem was that I didn't charge our mixer centrifuge enough before clicking the recombulator. You know, it started doing the sparky thing, and then it just stopped doing the sparky thing. And how am I supposed to know that that was the problem? So, good news is we have some antimony. Better news is I'm pretty sure we only need a little bit of it throughout the entire pack. So, I'm gonna go ahead and make like I don't know, a couple stacks of this, and then we will hopefully not need any more. So with any luck, our ember adventure should be behind us. All we have to do is put this whatever that was, antimony into our smeltery and cast it into signets of antimony. And I took a look at it. We actually don't need antimony ingots for anything. I don't think I have no interest in making this weapon. So the only thing we need is 2 signets to make our terrestrial agglomeration plate, and we'll need 4 eventually when we make our creative ember source. So this should be the one and only time we have to go through that fiasco. Come on, focal lens. First try one time. Never lucky. And here we go, the last step before we can make Terra Steel. I sure as hell hope. Alright, so with that, we should be able to make our... don't worry, this one's easy. There's our terrestrial agglomeration plate. So we just have to set up a nice little multi-block, and it should be pretty close to our mana source. So let's put it here. I'll set it up and be right back. So all we do is make this pattern. It's like an X of living rock, and then you fill in the sides with lapis blocks. You place the terrestrial amalgamation plate in the middle. You place a spark on that. You place another spark on the mana pool. The spark is just like a mana transfer thing. And lastly, you throw onto here 1 mana pearl, 1 mana steel ingot, and 1 mana diamond. Ruh-roh, that didn't do it. Alright, I think all I did was when I threw the stuff, it didn't land quite centered enough on the plate. So you throw 1 of each on there, and then you gotta wait a little while because we are only transferring mana from this 1 mana pool. The more mana pools you have sending mana, the faster this is, but you see how quickly it's draining. It takes about a half mana pool, I think, and we're not there yet. So this mana pool started just about 100% full, and it is now done. There's our first piece of Terra Steel. So there's a lot you can do with this. Now, later on in the game, we'll be able to make Terra Steel from Mystical Agriculture. So once we have Mystical Agriculture, we don't have to go through this process anymore. Because again, as I said, this uses a lot of mana, right? Just about a half a mana pool to make one piece. But now that we have Terra Steel, we can make the Alpine Portal, which is it's like the Nether Portal and stuff, but you can't actually go through it. Instead of sending players through, you send items through. So these recipes take, let's see, I think one of these, yeah, the Gateway Core takes part of a Terra Steel ingot to make. The Lexica Botania helpfully has a thing to help you visualize the structure. In this case, I don't know how helpful it actually is because it's very simple, but I think we can tag it to the ground. And again, it's like a nether portal. I guess it's like a big nether portal, but you don't need the corners. And I also remember that we also have to make these 2 Natura pylons to go with it. So that ends up taking the other 6 Terra Steel nuggets. So it takes exactly 1 Terra Steel ingot to make this portal. Now, after you make this structure itself, then you have to place the 2 mana pools nearby. I think anywhere nearby works. And place the Natura pylons on that. And then we have to put a little bit of mana in those pools. So let's do that. We can move mana between mana pools with a mana tablet. So all we have to do is come here, set this pool to filling mana tablet mode. Throw our tab in there. Let's get a little bit more. And while it's draining, you see those like little lightning bolts. So as we have a little bit of mana in here, set these pools to empty from tablet. Just fill them up a tiny bit. Now this little bit of mana won't be enough to keep the portal open very long. So what I'm thinking is let's grab some of our blacker lotuses that we got from our loot farm and just toss them in here. So yeah, I think it takes about 10 to fill a pool. So 4 is about 40% of a mana pool. Last thing we have to do is right click the Elven Gateway Core with our Wand of the Forest and it opens. So as I said, you can't go through it. If you stand here, nothing happens. You can stand here all day. But the first thing you want to do is throw your Lexica Botania through it. You get a gilded Lexica Botania back, and it has more information in it now. It starts with like a greeting page, some lore, but it also tells you about what you can do with this portal. So it's the main use of this. Well, I guess the only use of this is a kind of like a trade mechanic. We can trade our versions of stuff for the Elven version. So we have Dreamwood, Elementium, Pixie Dust, and Dragonstone. So we can just trade, throw Living Wood in and get Dreamwood out. Likewise for Elementium, we trade Mana Steel for it at a 2-to-1 ratio, so on and so forth. And one last final thing I like to do with our portal, at least early on, it costs a little bit of mana to keep the portal open. It can kind of be hard to tell because it drains pretty slowly. Now it costs a little bit of mana to open it initially, but it very slowly drains our mana pool. What I like to do that is because I don't use it very often, you open the portal, do a bunch of trading, and then you don't need it for a while. I like to set up an easy way to close it. And all that is a sticky piston. So this piston will pull the gateway core out of the way, which closes the portal and stops our mana drain. When I want to turn it on again, I flip this again to push the core back in position and click this button to turn it on. And if we look at our mana pool right now, it has about a quarter in it. Opening it costs about 1/8 of a mana pool to open it. So yeah, you just got to keep in mind if you aren't going to use it for a while, it's cheaper to close it and open it again later when you need it than to leave it open. Anyways, I think we're gonna wrap up today's episode here. I'm sorry we didn't quite get that much done. We got roadblocked a little bit by this disaster of a crafting mechanic, but yeah, now that we have this portal open, that gets us to the point where can do one of the most fun things in Botania, and that is, assuming it's here, the Gaia Guardian. So next episode, we'll come back and start with the Gaia Guardian and go on from there. So I hope you liked this episode, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.